They say the Whitlock estate still stands, though the years have chewed at its bones like a starving hound. The house sits at the far edge of Hollow Creek, where the fog never fully lifts, and the crows gather in such numbers that the trees seem to drip black. I first saw it when I was a young man, sent to deliver a parcel before the road was closed. Even then, the place felt wrong, the kind of silence that presses against your ribs, as though the air itself is listening. Eleanor Whitlock lived there alone after her husband, Dr. James Whitlock, died in the winter of '59. His death was quiet, sudden, heart failure, they said, though the coroner's report was never shown. He'd been a respected man, a physician known for his work with the afflicted, the melancholic, the mad. People came from Richmond, and even further north to see him, and many left healed. Or so they believed. Eleanor was devoted to him, too devoted perhaps. When he passed, she closed the infirmary, and the church bells rang for 7 days. Then she withdrew. Dismissed every servant, every worker, every gardener. The iron gates were locked, the curtains drawn, and for almost a year she was not seen. Only the flicker of candlelight behind the windows at night told the town she was still there, alive, or something near to it. There were stories, of course. People in Hollow Creek never let grief be simple. Some said she still spoke to her husband, that she'd kept his study just as he'd left it, that food was left at the door and came back untouched. Children whispered of voices under the ground, of lanterns moving behind the earth itself. A farmer once claimed he saw her digging in the garden during the black hours before dawn, her hands bare, the earth soaked dark with something thicker than rain. But rumors are like smoke. They fade, even when there's fire beneath them. By the time autumn came, no one spoke of her at all. The Whitlock name became something muttered, not mentioned. Until one morning, smoke rose again from the chimneys, thin, gray, curling like breath after confession. A carriage arrived from the city, black and without crest. Then another, then a third. They came at dusk and left before sunrise, bearing no luggage, no guests, only pale figures in coats too thin for the season. Their faces were wrong somehow, empty. They didn't look at the town or the road or the world at all. And there she was, Eleanor Whitlock, standing in her doorway to greet them, dressed in black silk, her hair bound tight, her face calm and sharp as a blade. She smiled as they entered the house one by one, as though welcoming old friends home. Then the doors closed, and that was the last anyone saw of them. After that night, the smoke from the chimneys grew darker, thicker. The house began to hum, faintly, like the sound of something turning beneath the floorboards. Those who lived nearest claimed they could hear muffled cries at dawn as though carried through the soil. But when the sheriff rode out to see, there was nothing. The gates were locked, the grounds empty. Only one thing was certain. Something inside that house was alive, and it was not grief. By the winter of the next year, the Whitlock estate had become a wound upon the land. The fields around it refused to grow. The trees leaned away as if ashamed to face the house. The people of Hollow Creek no longer walked that road, not even by daylight. They said the earth there was sick, that the ground itself wept when it rained. It was then that Father Merrin arrived, young, kind, and far too sure of God. He had come from Richmond after word reached the diocese that the widow of Dr. Whitlock had turned her home into a place of healing, a refuge for those touched by the mind's storms. Her letters to the Chew Arch spoke of charity, of divine purpose, of continuing her husband's sacred mission. Yet there were inconsistencies. Too many souls admitted, too few released. When he came upon the estate, he found the gates unlocked and the path swept clean, though no footprints marked the frost. He called for Mrs. Whitlock, his voice trembling as it echoed through the garden. From the porch she appeared, slender, calm, her eyes the color of smoke. She greeted him kindly, as though expecting him, and for a moment he felt foolish for his fears. Inside, the house was immaculate. The fire burned low, the air thick with lavender and something metallic beneath it. No sound of patients, no sign of others. She led him through the halls, speaking softly of redemption and mercy, of how her husband's work had been misunderstood. Her hand shook as she poured tea, yet her words flowed with the rhythm of prayer. She told him the mind was not an illness to be cured, but a soul to be disciplined, that her husband had discovered a way to make the lost remember who they were. They forget, because they fear, she said, and fear must be removed by force, as one removes a rotten tooth. When she spoke of the rooms below, the priest asked to see them. Her smile faltered for the first time. "The lower ward is not ready for visitors," she whispered. But when he pressed, she relented. They descended a narrow stair hidden behind the pantry wall, the air growing colder with each step. The stone walls dripped with moisture, the lantern flame guttering. Then he saw them. The doors, iron, narrow, sealed with bolts and scripture carved into the lintels. Behind one came the sound of breathing, behind another the steady rhythm of weeping. Eleanor's voice was soft when she spoke again. "They are healing, Father. Slowly. The mind must break before it can be mended." He stepped closer to one door and placed his hand against it. The surface was warm. Something inside shifted, and a voice, weak but human, whispered, "Help me." The priest recoiled, turning to her, but she only watched him, tears gathering at the edges of her eyes. "You can't help them," she said. "Not yet. They are becoming pure." When he fled that house, the night air burned like ice in his lungs. He told the church what he had seen, but his report was dismissed as hysteria, grief perhaps, exhaustion. By spring, Father Merrin was gone, sent away, they said, to recover. Yet the townsfolk swore they saw him wandering near the estate weeks later, his eyes blank, his lips moving in prayer. And from the hollow beneath the Whitlock house, the cries continued, faint and rhythmic, like the breathing of something that refused to die. The summer of 1871 began with thunder, not the kind that rolls gently across the sky, but the kind that seems to come from beneath the earth, deep, hungry, endless. The people of Hollow Creek had learned to look away from the Whitlock estate by then. No one spoke of it, no one asked questions. Yet every night a strange hum drifted through the valley, low and constant, like the groaning of something ancient trying to breathe. It was on a night like that, near midsummer, when the storm came. The sky split open, rain falling in sheets that struck the ground like stones. Lightning clawed the hills, and from the town they could see the flash strike the Whitlock house. A heartbeat later, the roof bloomed with fire. By morning the flames had burned themselves out. The house still stood, blackened but unbroken, the chimneys rising like gravestones against the dawn. The sheriff gathered a small search party, 6 men and a doctor, and rode out to the estate. They found the doors unlocked, the air thick with the stink of smoke, and something fouler still. Inside, the rooms were quiet, the mirrors shattered, the floors slick with ash. But there were no bodies, no Eleanor, no servants, no trace of the patients she had claimed to care for. They found the entrance to the lower levels by accident, a hole in the kitchen floor where the fire had eaten through the boards. Beneath it, a stair descended into darkness. One of the men lowered a lantern. What they saw should never have existed. Dozens of cells carved from the earth, each with rusted bolts and narrow slits for air. The walls were scratched to the bone, the names of the living and the dead carved together until they were the same. In one corner, a wooden desk held rows of journals, all written in Eleanor's hand. The last page read, "The voices have calmed. They do not scream now. They are listening." And then the light flickered. One of the men, the youngest, swore he saw movement in the farthest cell. A shadow that swayed though no wind blew. He stepped closer. The smell grew heavier, the air wet with decay. Then a sound, faint, trembling, like someone trying to draw breath. He dropped the lantern. When they climbed out, the sheriff ordered the cellar sealed with stone. He told his men to speak nothing of what they'd seen. The house was left to rot, its windows boarded, its name erased from county records. Years passed. Grass grew over the path, the woods thickened, and time buried what it could not forgive. But even now, Travelers who pass through Hollow Creek after sundown say the ground hums beneath their feet. Some swear they see a light flickering through the cracks of the old foundation like a candle that refuses to die. And if you stand long enough, you might hear it too. A woman's voice, faint and steady, whispering to those still beneath the earth. She calls their names, slowly, tenderly, as if she never stopped believing they could be saved. I have heard her once, and I pray I never hear her again. When morning came, only the ashes remembered what had been done.